I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have time. Oh, but look in my past. God, I just feel so stupid and there's no way I can do that. That's reserved for somebody else. Those are your limiting beliefs that you are imposing on yourself from yourself. And we're going to talk about that, your self-imposed limiting beliefs. Let's talk about changing them because you know what? You don't have to live that way. I promise. Check it out. Hey, everybody. It's your girl, Lori. Welcome back to the Positivity Experience. I am so happy that you are here. It is a spring weekend. I just recently had my birthday, and all of you who reached out, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I am happily 52 and hopefully would like to be here another 52 years. But for the years that I will be here, I'm going to keep trugging along and I'm going to keep doing the best that I can with what I got and trying to help you along the way. And I did not always have that. But before I get into that, I want to talk to you and say thank you so much over on Patreon. I welcome to all of the newest members. I appreciate it so much. You guys have reached out. You guys have said that the worksheets are really helpful. What I do is I try to have something that complements this podcast over there, and it comes with like a worksheet. And in another tier, the higher tier over there, we try to give you an extra episode a month and some giveaways dropped in there from time to time. So I just want to tell you thank you because, it's something that you choose to do. It's nothing that you ever have to do, including listen to this podcast. And I just want to thank everybody that's here because it means so much to me. It matters so much to me. And today is no different over there. And we're going to talk about restructuring those limited beliefs and giving you some prompts that you can journal on and things like that. So that's what we're talking about over there. If that interests you, you can just drop down into the show notes, like the description of this podcast, and there's a link that takes you to it, or you can go to patreon.com/the positivity experience. So with that being said, I want to jump into the topic today. There's 7 ways that I'm going to, there's 7 of many because I literally struggled with paring it down to say, these are the ones that I really want to talk about today, because there's probably 700 limited beliefs that you're doing to yourself. And I most certainly did. And I'll share that along the way. And why I say that they're self-imposed, because they are absolutely self-imposed. You're imposing them. Of course, we know that there's a deeper rooted issue, right? So it's never the surface thing. So let's say like the first one, say you're limited by your past, right? Because in the past, you did something ridiculous. You did something dumb. Maybe you made really poor choices. Maybe you were in prison. Maybe you had an addiction. Maybe you had, okay, that was then. Okay. But what happens is during that time, you could have been told how horrible you are, how selfish you are, things you've done. So you've taken those voices that you heard during the time of the past. Okay. You've taken that voice and you've now adopted it. So you hear it and you hear it in your voice, right? So they are yours, right? So you've taken it and then sometimes you exacerbate on it, which is why you have got to pause. You got to pause, you got to stop, and you've got to start healing some of these things in the past. Now, some of the things you may not want to face, but unless you face them, it's always going to be this big bad monster that's over top of you every single time, because your fears and your limited beliefs look really big and scary. And every time that something comes up and creeps up and you go, well, God, but in my past, I couldn't do it in my past. I tried to start something and it just didn't work. Okay. Well, that was also then. You're a different person now. You have different skill sets. You have a different level of patience. Some of you have a different level of patience, because patience is not everybody's strong suit, which I have a podcast coming on patience, because I feel like that deserves its entire year-long podcast, but it deserves its own podcast. But it's something that's important for you to realize, that just because something didn't work in the past, and this is across the board, right? You're limiting yourself in any growth, anything in your life by saying, this relationship didn't work in the past. In the past, I've had 2 really bad relationships. So obviously going forward, my relationships are probably going to suck. And if I think that they're going good, I'm going to sabotage them because they should suck because they did in the past. And so that's why you have to remember that every situation has to be a standalone situation. I know it's difficult, and I'm not saying it's easy and you're going to be like, that was that one relationship. No bigs. Of course, you take the lessons that you're learning. You take the knowledge that you have from it, not the knowledge of not trusting people, the knowledge of like, okay, well, what could I do different? Because remember, there's always two people in it. Always, always, always. So you have to look at the part that you played or didn't play. And looking at it, it's not blaming yourself at all, by the way. It's just looking and saying, well, because you can only control yourself. You can't control anybody else. So you can look at it and go, okay, well, what could I do different? What areas can I work on? But when you do that, it gives you a sense of empowerment. So now the past doesn't necessarily hold as much weight, right? And that kind of goes into number 2, which we know, and I'm a big fan of failure, big, huge fan. But number 2 of this is that you're fearing that on such a high level and you're going, I failed in the past, but did you fail? Is it ever really a failure, or is it something that just doesn't work out? Because even in a situation, if something doesn't work out, it's still a success because you're learning something. Yes, it's hurtful. Yes, it's the bumps and bruises of life that honestly, we don't really love. I did not love them. And I honestly felt, and especially because I was living in such of that, that mindset of pain and that mindset of can't and that mindset of scarcity, that it felt like every day I was getting up in like bumps and bruises, because it was constantly like I was replaying that story in my head of, well, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening around me? Why are these people doing this? Why are these people successful? Why, there was a lot of why questions. And every time you ask that why question, and every time you're doing that, you're literally like, you're getting more bumps, you're getting more bruises, and it becomes painful, right? And it's hard for you to see past yourself. But you have to say, what am I gaining? Because here is the kicker. You ain't gonna love it, but it's facts. You're getting something from holding on to it. You're getting something from living in that chaos. You really are. You really are. Because if you weren't, you would not do it. Yes, it could be from some trauma that's unhealed. Yes, we know why. We know that there is a reason for it. We know that there is a valid reason for it. But where the issue is going to come into play is, you're going to have to accept that where you are now is where you are now. Okay? You're going to have to accept that. And you're going to say, okay, what can I do from here going forward? What can I do? Because if you don't, it's going to be really, I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to be really difficult for you to go on this healing journey, right? If you're not willing to let go and to release these things that are no longer serving you, because you're getting something from it. You're either getting that comfort of feeling like you're in control by not releasing it, because there's some truth to that, right? Like in your mind, there's some truth to it. There's not real truth to it, but there's truth in your mind that if you don't let go of this grudge, or if you don't let go of the past, or if you don't embrace the unknown, if you don't allow yourself to put yourself as a priority, right? If you don't allow that, that's okay, because you know how to live in that chaos. Believe it or not, there's comfort in chaos. Didn't say it's healthy, but God knows there is comfort in chaos, and there just is, right? If you're a negative thinker, you don't want to be a negative thinker, but it's so much easier for you. That's like automatic thinking. And so this is where, again, you have to say, my limited belief is keeping me there. My limited belief that says that if I can't forgive, that if I don't forgive, because you always can. If I don't forgive, I'm protecting myself. No, you're not. No, you are not. You are drinking your own poison. You are holding yourself back. You sitting there and holding a grudge only hurts you. The other person's not losing sleep. They don't care. It is what it is. And so again, but by releasing, by accepting and forgiving, and then you can analyze and go, okay, this isn't a relationship that I really want, right? This is a relationship that tends to bring me more pain, but I'm going to release it. I'm going to wish love and light, and I'm going to forgive. And I know by forgiving, I'm freeing that up in myself. That's going to really, really help you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that over on Patreon today, because it's a big piece of releasing this limited belief and that you think that you have control. Now that's a kind of a bonus one, because I didn't have this on today's topic in today's 7, because there's, like I said, 177, but is that you deserve to be able to release things that no longer serve you. But you got to believe that. Now that is number 3, is you believe that success is reserved for everybody else but you. Okay. Now I know you might not actively be going, everybody else deserves success but me. Right? You're not actively sitting there going, everybody else. Well, and you might be. Let me not say that. You might be, because you might be in a deeper, darker space that you feel like Everybody else deserves it. But somehow or another, you don't deserve it because you're a really bad person because of a mistake or a situation that happened years ago. You are persecuting yourself. You are carrying this you're carrying this cross to bear on your back of saying, I don't deserve this because I hurt somebody. I don't deserve this because I did blank, blank, blank. I don't deserve, well, okay, but you're here now. You're here now. Listen, you can't undo something. You can't undo hurting somebody. That's right. Yeah, you did. Yep. Does it suck? Sure. Yeah. Is that great? No. But guess what? In life, you're going to be hurt and you're going to hurt people from time to time. It doesn't make it right. It just makes it is. I mean, that's just life 101. But if you're sitting there and you think that you don't deserve something like happiness or you don't deserve success of whatever your definition of success is, if you don't feel as though you deserve that and you are still beating yourself up because of a situation or situations that you did when you were in a survival mode or when you were just, let's say, you were spiraling and you did all these really horrible things. Okay. Beating yourself up and feeling as though you don't deserve something is a hell prison that you're putting yourself in. And let me be the first to tell you, you did what you did. Yes, you did. If you need to apologize, apologize. If you can't apologize because somebody's not there anymore, then you accept it. You can write them a letter. You can literally write them a letter. Don't send it. You're going to burn it. But, it's that kind of thing. But don't sit there and say that because you did blank or because you didn't do blank, that you don't deserve success. Just because things happened that were a little not so grand doesn't mean that you can't use that, springboard that pain, springboard those situations, allow yourself to accept your success, and then you can pay it forward going forward. You can't undo the past, but you can do better going forward. Well, you can't do better going forward if you're not willing to accept the success. Because I feel like I need to not pause there, but I feel like I need to stay there for a minute and say, listen, success is not a dollar sign. Success is not how many followers you have on social media. Success is not how many friends you have. Success is not the title you have. Success is not being a parent. That's not success. That isn't. That's not success because you're putting your success on an now, those can be benchmarkers. Those can be visual cues that say, wow, I feel accomplished. But true full-on success, right? And this is something that I think probably because in my Buddhist practice, it's very helpful for me because you don't really identify things as successful or failures. You just don't. They just are. Like they don't come with emotions. There's not positive. There's not negative. They just are, right? And so, and when you can function that way, and granted, it takes some time and a lot of practice, but when you can function in understanding that true success is being a kind human being, being kind to yourself, being kind to other people, being kind to people who you think may not deserve it, forgiving people, forgiving yourself. Most importantly, my God, is forgiving yourself, right? You can hold grudges to people all day long, but nothing's going to compare to the thing that you're beating yourself up on, right? And so success isn't defined by all of these external things. They're great to have. We all love them. I like to use them as benchmarks. You like to use them as benchmarks, but don't get caught up in thinking that that's what you need. Because if in fact you have all of those glorious things that you define as success, and you've lost who you are, you don't know who you are, you don't feel good in what you're doing, you just feel like you're doing that same rat race over and over again, but you're doing the things and you're providing and you have your bills paid off and you have your family and you have your, whatever it is, but you feel hollow. Is that really a success? I mean, maybe for some people, but not in my book. Successful doesn't mean that you have $8 million in the bank, but you're riding yourself and you're driving yourself into the ground. $8 million in the bank is great. You can cry in your Ferrari versus your tent, but the reality is that doesn't necessarily make you happier. So when you say success is defined for other people or that you're not worthy of this success, that's not true. That's literally, that's a false belief, but that's very, very limiting. Stop persecuting yourself and throwing yourself on this hill to think that you still have to keep repaying and repaying and repaying. You can't keep repaying a debt that you've already repaid. You just can't do it. Now, number 4, right, is one that I tend to fall into is too busy. You're too busy. Oh my God, I have so much to do, which is true. I have so much to do. I have had to push my book back a little bit because, life happens. Different things come up. Different things become a priority. Things have to be taken care of. So it doesn't mean I'm pushing it back for years. Like, no, it's just a few weeks. But, it's one of those things that if you say you're too busy, right? I hear this all the time and it drives me nutso when it's about the 5 journals. And you guys know the 5 journals are my jam. I have a whole entire part of the book that is dedicated to these 5 freaking journals because they're life-saving. But I did that whole thing where it's like 5 journals. My God, I can barely do one. I don't even have the time. I don't have the time. I'm too busy. Listen, every human being has the same. Well, first of all, time's fake. Time doesn't exist in any other moment, but it's time. The time is linear. But for the sake of being a human being, we have time and we have to adhere to a certain time, right? But we all have the same 24 hours in the day. It's how are you going to maximize it? Are you trying to do too much? Well, this goes back to what I just said to you about, do you think that you deserve success? Because if you think success is just having $85 million in the bank, but then you don't have time for yourself and you don't have time to do your 5 journals, you don't have time to do your hobby, you don't have time to find a hobby, you don't have time to relax, you don't have time to do that because you're still chasing this external source of success. And this is why you have to be really careful of saying that you're too busy. If this means, and it's funny, like, I listened to this book, Robin Sharma, The 5 a.m. Club. It's a great, great book. Highly recommend it. And there's one called The Miracle Morning. Love it. I'm not a 5 a.m. girl. Do I want to gear towards that? I don't know that that's important to me. 7 is fine. 6:37. Like, it doesn't have to be a 5 a.m. Would it feel good and would I maximize my time? Yes. Is it on my radar screen every now and again to get up at 5 a.m., see how it works and see if it's effective for me? Yes, but it's not a priority right now. It's still getting up a little early so I have more time for myself. And I do have that 2 hours that I do build into myself. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 5 a.m., but I do understand why successful people get up at that time of the day. I really, really do, because it's a time of quietness. And, you can say, well, I get up at 5 already and by the time I'm home, Well, you know what? Then you get up at 4:50. It doesn't have to be a full 2 hours. It doesn't have to be an hour. It could be 10 minutes where you get up and you do some breathing exercises. You do a quick part of your gratitude journal. You do something. But you've got to, the time is there. I promise you the time is there. And before you go, but you don't know my story. I have 6 kids and I'm doing that. I understand that, but the time is there. Are you on social media? Are you scrolling? Are you on Facebook? Are you on TikTok? Are you scrolling? You have time. You have time. Don't sit there and tell me you don't have time. And then and then you're sending reels and TikToks to me. You have time. So it's about asking yourself, are you too busy because you're distracting yourself? Are you too busy because healing yourself is scary? Are you too busy because you have so much to heal and so much to do and so much to clean that you just don't feel like doing it? Well, yeah. Now, see, that's why you got to be honest and truthful with yourself. You have to be honest and truthful with yourself, because if you're constantly sitting in a space of saying that you're too busy, it's an excuse. And it's an excuse in which we all use. So that's why, and it's funny because I just had a client last week say, you do a whole lot, but yet you still find time. I said, no, I make time, right? I have severe adult ADHD. And if I'm not pretty structured, now I also like flexibility, right? So if I'm off, I'm going to be flexible. I'm not scheduling my off time, but I have to be structured. I'm doing a couple podcasts, right? I do a couple podcasts a week. I'm still writing in my book. I have my clients, I try to take care of my physical health. I try to take care of my mental health, and still try to go to the bathroom, eat, clean up the house a little bit. Like, there's a lot that goes on in my world, but I have it scheduled. And when it's scheduled and you take the time to do the work to schedule yourself and stick to your, it's great to go out and get 95 planners and go, look at all of these planners I have. I've written it out. I've spent 4 hours writing in my planner. Well, if you say I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. or I'm going to get up at 7 a.m. and do my journals, and then the next morning the alarm goes off and you don't get up, well, you're not sticking to your schedule at all. You just wasted 2.5 hours of writing in your planner of the things that you're going to do and that you want to do. But you're wasting that time. You're wasting that energy. So you have to show up for yourself the same way you would an appointment with me, or an appointment with a doctor, or an appointment with a client or a friend. If you say you're going to meet for a movie, typically you're going to show up before the start of the movie, typically, and maybe you're a few minutes late, but you're going to be there. Why? Because the movie has a start time. Well, why are you giving all of that? And of course, you do have to make concessions for shit that's going to come up, right? Things are going to arise, right? But it isn't something that you have to sit and go, well, if I don't do this, then that's a problem. Well, you have to understand, just because you have a plan doesn't mean it's the plan. But if you're not showing up for yourself the way that you show up for other people, you're not really showing up for them either, because you're not showing up for yourself, and you have to be the foundation of that. So with the too busy thing, you're really going to have to analyze that, right? And again, over on Patreon, we're going to talk a little bit about that too, and kind of trying to carve out more time. But it just kind of is one of those things that you have to be really clear of, because the other issue that you will run into, not just by doing the calendar, but ouch, sorry, the cat is sitting here playing with me while I'm talking to you, and he just put his nails at me. I'm like, what is your story, bro? But number 5, right, and this is a huge one, and this stops you with just about everything, is this need to be perfect. Perfection's not real. I am going to repeat this. I have multiple podcasts, multiple YouTubes on this. Perfection is fake. You're goaling for something that doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. So if you go, okay, well now Lori's given me this thing where I'm gonna schedule out my time. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna schedule out my time. That's what I'm doing. And now you spend all this time and you go, okay, she said to show up for myself, so I got to make sure I'm showing up for myself. This is what I need to do. Okay, that's just doing. That's not being in the moment. Number 1. But my God, you are supposed to fail. This goes back, and this is why those two things go hand in hand. Your only reason for fearing failure is because you have this need to be perfect. Now, you might not be a full-on, full-blown perfectionist. I mean, in life, you don't want to just go through like, mess that up. Of course not. But you got to have those situations. And you think, well, if I get up at 5 a.m. and I do my 5 a.m. club stuff, and I do my journals, and I drink good food, I eat good food, I drink good drinks, I'm doing these things, I'm showing up to yoga, I'm going to bed at the right time. Okay, you're a robot. Like, you got to be in those moments. And you look, I did it. Okay. That's great. But if you're competing with yourself on a constant basis, I mean, it's always great to have a little self competition. But if you're saying, if I don't do this, I'm going to do this, wrong, so I'm not going to do it at all. And that is a really limited belief that was given to us, especially if we're in our middle age, like I am, that was given to us. And you may, even if you're younger, you may have had this given to you as well, is if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. That's a horrible, horrible, horrible piece of advice. Because how can you do it right if you're just starting doing it? You're going to mess it up. So then you have this pressure that says, well, if I can't do the dishes correct, it's the first time doing my dishes. And if I can't do my dishes correct, why would I do them at all? And then you go, well, I need to keep striving for it. And then you're never going to reach this level of perfection because it doesn't exist. And typically you're adopting that from other people, right? You're adopting somebody else's unhealed trauma. You're adopting, these people's situations, and then you've adopted it for yourself. And in turn, you know what you do? You project that onto other people. Now you're mad that your husband or your wife or whomever, you're mad that they didn't load the dishwasher the right way. So you get upset with them when they don't load the dishwasher, but they're like, I'm not loading the dishwasher because every time I load the dishwasher, you don't like that I put a couple glasses down on the bottom shelf. You freak out about it. So I'm not going to load it. And they're not wrong. Think about that being for you. If you've done something, you've done it a little different, but it's still as effective, and somebody doesn't like it and they just keep telling you how it's bad and how it's not effective and how all of these things are happening, you're probably not going to do it anymore. And that is okay. So, that's why I'm saying you have to be really careful of that. Now, number 6 that goes with that is thinking that you're not smart enough. Okay. Like you're not smart enough. Oh, I'm not smart enough to start that new business. I mean, I feel like, gosh, like I just started this new practice and, especially when you're starting your new business or you're starting a new job or you're going into a new class or, anything, you go, oh my God, am I going to be smart enough? What's your definition of smart? Well, I should be able to do, okay. The professor that you're sitting in that like college class with didn't start out being quote unquote smart enough. Nope. They started out exactly where you are. Serena Williams didn't pick up the tennis racket day one as a kid and go, look at me, I'm going to be like an icon in the tennis world. Like, of course not. She messed up and she messed up over and over again. She had multiple surgeries because of her arms. Like, things like that have happened. The problem goes right back into this perfectionism that you think that you have to be. And I've said this multiple times, unless I'm hired out to do a speaking engagement or I'm working with a client, I do not want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to know the absolute least. I want to walk in there like I am a toddler in a college class. Seriously, because then I can observe and absorb this knowledge. You can't learn thinking you need to be the smartest. You can't learn thinking that you need to be the best in the room. You can't learn that way. And if you're not learning, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're not quote unquote succeeding. Success is always going to be rooted in a continuous growth in life. So you have to say, am I smart enough? Well, guess what? If you start a new job, and let's say you have doctorates in whatever it is that you're doing, you're in this new lab that you're studying new things, and you're like, yeah, I have the knowledge, you get in, but guess what? That lab might do things vastly different than the way that you've ever done it. So you might go, oh my God, am I even smart enough to be here? Because I don't know this system. Well, why would you know this system? It might be sole proprietary to that company. Well, of course you're not going to know it. What do you mean? You have to give yourself that patience and that compassion to know that, which goes hand in hand with number 7, and that you're not good enough. Okay. Smart and good, a little bit different. They do complement each other. Am I good enough? What do you mean, are you good enough? Based on what definition? And here's a little homework for you here. Seriously. What does being good enough mean to you? Because sometimes you're striving for something. Like seriously, ask yourself that. Write it down. Seriously, get a pen and paper. What do you define in yourself? What do you define being good enough? Because sometimes what you're going to find is you're going to look at that paper and you're going to be like, okay, well, let me think about it. So the fact that it doesn't just rattle off the top of your head should let you know right then and there, you're telling yourself these false narratives. You're striving for something that you don't even know what you're striving for. And being good enough, are we saying good enough or are we saying perfect again? Because sometimes you're striving for perfection and you say you're not good enough. And are you not good enough because your dad told you that you weren't going to be good enough? What is good enough? Based on what definition? Because I've said this often, while perfection doesn't exist, I love quote unquote a perfect setting. So like, let's say it's a beautiful fall day. It's late September to early middle October. The leaves are starting to change. There's some crispness in the air. I have a light jacket on or a sweatshirt. I'm sitting out in the woods. There's a clearing there. I have a little fire going. I can see the full moon. Oh my goodness, that's level of perfection for me. That's good for me. You may say, I need 98 degrees. I need a beach. That's fine. That's good enough for you. Neither one of us are wrong. That's our version of what makes us tick, right? So by asking yourself what is good enough, are you defining yourself that way? Are you defining good enough based on what your religious upbringing brought you, what your parents brought you, what society is bringing you, what Instagram's telling you, what, you feel that the world around you is telling you? Because these are self-imposed, just 7 of many. And if you want more, please let me know. Please let me know. Drop it down in the comments. This goes directly over to YouTube as well. So you can go to YouTube. You can drop that in there for me. I'll even do a little thing on my Instagram. Official Lori Wheeler is my Instagram, on stories where we can talk about some things and open up a discussion. And, because it's important. because you're stopping your own growth more than you realize it. You get going, things start going, you're being somewhat consistent with the journals, you're doing the things, and then you're like, I don't want to do the things anymore because you're not doing them for the right reason. If you're going to therapy to feel better, it's really not the right reason. You're going to therapy, you're going to coaching, you're doing all of those things to work through the things that are holding you back, to work through the limited beliefs. In turn, the byproduct of that is feeling better. You don't go to the gym because you're going to lose weight. You're not eating well and going to the gym to lose weight. You're not. No, hard pass. You're going to the gym to move your body because it is good for your body in that moment. If weight loss comes secondary and is a byproduct, beautiful. But you got to stop holding out this hope of going, I was in therapy for a year. I still don't feel great. Well, of course you don't still feel great. How old are you? It's taken you how long? Slow down, because you do deserve it. You do deserve to be successful in a term of what you deem successful. But the external things are not it. The external things are great to have, still goal for them. It's a great way to set your goals, establish goals, and see where you are in your success journal. That's great. But no, are you you? Are you being authentic to yourself? Are you showing up for yourself authentically? Are you showing up with intention for yourself? Because if the answer to that question is no, that's where you have to go back and restructure some of these limited self-imposed beliefs. Okay? So as we wrap up, I want to remind you, this is all a false narrative, and so much of this is coming from other people, other experiences, other dramatizations and traumas that have happened in your life. And you've done so because you've wanted people to be happy. You've people pleased. You've done all that stuff. Guess what, guys? It's the time for you. This has to be the year for you. I promise you, it is not selfish. It is not selfish to go and get out of the house from your family and sit at a coffee shop because you can't stand the sight of them right now because you need to focus on yourself. Guess what? That's okay. That's okay. It's okay to not dot every I and cross every T with these new business ventures that you're trying to do. Not everything is an urgent issue. Not everything is that. It's okay to take a step back from, maybe church or things that you're dealing with in your life because you're not sure what you believe in. It's okay. It's okay to say, I need a minute. It's okay. It's okay to say, you know what? This isn't working for me. Maybe I need to look at restructuring and changing it, even though it means I might hurt a few people along the way. It's okay. Because you are the only human being that you are going to spend 100% of your life with. The only human being, not your children, not your dollar signs, not your spouse, not your family, the only person. So if you're not true and authentic to that self, and you're driving around in the Bentley, you got the $85 million in the bank, you got the 85 million followers, you're a super celebrity, all of these beautiful things are happening, everybody around you is happy, but you are burned out, you feel empty, you feel lonely, you feel unfulfilled, you feel as though you're not who you are, then guess what? That's not a success at all. Okay? And guess what? You do deserve peace. You do deserve happiness. But you're going to have to check yourself on it. And you're going to have to be aware of that, you know what? You do deserve good things. And I promise you so much that those limited self-imposed beliefs are the difference between your happiness and your continued unhappiness. Check it out.